On the topic of buying partial ownership shares of an existing U.S. business, we have to be mindful of the adequacy of the profit share to satisfy the immigration officials. So one of the E2 visa requirements is that the business is capable of generating more than sufficient income to provide the applicant and any dependents with a comfortable living in the United States. So how much how much profit and income the applicant is entitled to share in the business is also dependent on the percentage ownership in the business. So obviously, if the applicant is buying 100% ownership in the U.S. business, he or she will be entitled to 100% of the profits. But if the purchase is only partial ownership, such as 50%, and of course 50% is the minimum ownership interest to be eligible to apply for the E2 visa. But when applying partial ownership, we have to be especially sensitive and mindful of the adequacy of that partial profit sharing. So for example, if a existing U.S. business is showing $60,000 a year in annual profits, as shown in the seller's annual business tax return, that amount, 60,000, could be adequate to support a small family of 3, for example, in a moderate cost of living area in the United States, based on the current cost of living. However, if the E2 investor is only buying partial ownership, for example, 50% ownership, well then, of course, with that reduced ownership interest, the entitled profit share is cut in half. It's reduced to half, 50% shares ownership interest. So that would drop the E2 investor's income down from 60,000 to 30,000 a year, which typically would not be adequate to satisfy an immigration officer to be able to support a family of 3, even in a moderate cost of living area in the United States. So, if the profit share entitlement is reduced to a point where it is inadequate to credibly show the financial ability to support the E2 investor with a comfortable living, then the applicant has the added burden of convincing the immigration official that the business under his or her partial ownership will credibly grow sufficiently in the near future and generate additional profits and income to be able to grow the E2 investor's income to an adequate level. Because based on the seller's performance and the partial acquisition, it wouldn't be sufficient. His 50% profit share would be insufficient based on the current business performance. Then the applicant really has to make an intentional effort to show what business improvements and business development efforts will be accomplished that will credibly grow the business revenue and profits in the coming few years to generate sufficient income based on the E2 investor's 50% ownership share to support him or her and any dependents. So that's an added layer of consideration when we're talking about buying a partial ownership of a U.S. business as opposed to buying the entire business 100% outright.